Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to the Infatuasian podcast. Happy June to you. I had a really fun time recording this episode with Reina. Reina Chan is an etiquette expert from Hong Kong, but trained in England and Switzerland. I came across Reina on Instagram. Her reels are just short little tips on etiquette. And I know etiquette might sound a little old-fashioned to you, but I really like the idea of it. The idea of etiquette is ways to make other people feel more comfortable, ways to fit in with other cultures and understanding culture. And so we had a really good chat. And so I really hope you enjoy listening to this. Stay tuned for other good episodes in June and July. We are working hard over here at the Infatuasian podcast to bring you content that is interesting, and hopefully you'll learn something. And along the way, we get to meet some really cool people like Reina. And so without further ado, I hope you enjoy this episode with Reina Chan coming up right after this. Let's say hello to Reina Chan. Hey, Reina.
Hi, Curtis.
How are you?
I'm very good. And you?
I'm well.
Yeah.
Normally, I got a question right off the bat. Normally, I ask my guests, have you eaten yet in the Asian way?
Yeah.
But it's 3:00 in the afternoon. Is it appropriate to ask someone if they've eaten yet at 3 in the afternoon, or do you usually do it when there's a meal coming or going?
So I would say that's a very interesting question. And usually with my clients not from Asia, and if they're learning about Asian etiquette, I always say that have you eaten is like a way of us to say, how are you?
Yeah.
So I would say it depends on the context that you're in, but it's always a nice question to ask. It shows that you're caring and you're considerate.
Okay, so it's never a wrong time to ask.
I don't think so.
All right. So, Reina, have you eaten yet?
Yes, I have. I had a small bite. How about you?
I was just telling you a minute ago, we have like a little food fest at my school. So they had pizza, they had spam musubi, they had boba. Some kid was selling boba. So
Nice.
yeah, I'm very full. So thank you for asking. So yeah, today we're going to talk a little bit of etiquette and a little bit of manners. I think this is fun. So I found you on Reels. I was just kind of scrolling through, and you have these really great Reels. They're really short, like 15 seconds long, and they're little things. And I said, you know what? I think I need to learn about this person, and I need to learn about etiquette a little more. So this is going to be really fun. But before we get to that, can we dig into your roots a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Ask away.
All right. So born and raised in Hong Kong.
I was born in Hong Kong. I moved to the UK to a boarding school, actually, a ladies' boarding school when I was 11.
Okay.
Yeah. And I moved back to Hong Kong 4 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so almost probably close to half and half then, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. But do you know even further back? Do your roots? How many generations in Hong Kong do you go?
I'm not sure exactly quite how far back, but maybe, as much as I know.
As far as you know,
Yeah,
your
as far as it
grandparents.
goes, I guess. Yeah.
Because we could be related. Your last name is Chan, but then in Chinese is Chun.
Yes.
And then I'm a Chin. My last name is Chin, but it's Toisan or Taishan.
Yeah.
So in Chinese is also Chun, the same character. So we could be from the same village 5
Maybe,
generations ago.
if it goes far back. Yeah.
We go way back.
How do you write your name in Chinese?
So it'd be Chun.
Okay,
Yeah,
the same Chun.
Classic. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. So it's funny, when people came to America, the immigration office, they just did whatever they wanted to.
Really? So they just changed the spelling of it?
Well, okay. So in my dialect in Toisanwa, it would be Chin. My last name would be Chin. So whoever heard it at Angel Island or the immigration office wrote it down as CHINN, which is even weirder because there are CHIN, those people.
Yeah.
But mine is double N, so it's even stranger.
Is it still spelled as CHINN in your passport?
To this day, yeah.
What? No
So that's
way.
the thing is whenever there's a immigration officer that does something like
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
like so for example, my mother's last name, so my gonggong's name
Yeah.
was Chu. But they spelled it Jue, but I've seen it Jew
Yeah.
or Chew or Chiu, but in Mandarin it's Zhou, like Zhou.
Or Zhu. Is
Ju.
it Zhu or Zhou? Because sometimes it's also ZHU.
Yeah. I think it'd be Chou.
Yeah. So
But in my grandfather's dialect, it would be Jew. So they spelled it Jue. So weird, right?
interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
Americans
didn't
are
know they can
weird.
change your name like
Yeah, no, it's
that.
weird because it's transliteration. So anyway,
Yeah.
so we may be distant relatives,
We
which is
can
cool.
be.
Yeah. Okay, so you go to England when you're grammar school. So it was a boarding school. Like when I picture boarding school in England, you know what I'm thinking? Hogwarts.
Yeah.
I'm
A lot
thinking
of
that
people say that.
I'm thinking that you're in houses and there's secret stairs everywhere. What is boarding school like in England?
We are in different houses. So I remember the house that I was in was called Lancaster.
Hmm.
And there were, I don't know, maybe like 3, 4 different houses. We had very strict rules. So,
Hmm.
a standardized time where you have to wake up and go for supper. And then you have prep time where you do your homework in a homework room. On Saturday, we can only go out for 4 hours. Every hour we had to go back to the meeting point and be like, okay, we're safe, nothing dangerous happened. And then on Sunday, we have like a full day planned of just activities. So it
Uh-huh.
was intense, but I learned a lot from it.
I mean, it looks fun on TV, but I don't know. Yeah, you were on board, or did your parents just send you there, or did you want to go there? What was the plan?
Oh my Lord. Long story.
Okay.
I was quite I was quite a rebellious kid, as I remembered.
Okay.
Well, my mom decided to send me there. I think she
Okay.
thought that it would be good for my education to be educated in a boarding school, I guess.
Okay. Okay. Now, so if you flash, so now you're doing etiquette and training. If you flash back to your 11 or 12-year-old self,
Yeah.
did you see it? Were you like, oh, I love this. I love manners. I love formality. I love being proper. Was that something you liked, or is this kind of later in life?
Um, I'm really not sure. I mean, thinking back, I don't think I've ever thought that I would enter into this field. I mean, I've I've always loved culture, connecting with
Mm-hmm.
people from different parts of the world. I remember when I was at boarding school, I was the only Asian in the whole year.
Oh, wow.
So that was interesting.
So this was London,
Um,
or this wasn't London?
that was in the boarding school. So when I first got there, I
But
remember I
is
was
it
the only
out in
Asian.
the suburbs, or is it?
Oh yeah, it was like up north in Yorkshire.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Far away from the city. I was really, not used to it because everything closed at like 4 p.m., 5
Uh-huh.
p.m.
So you're
and
way
it got
out there.
dark, really early. But I never thought I would enter into this field.
Okay.
Yeah, despite my interest in culture, communication, I think maybe the part that I always knew is something to do with studying humans, analyzing humans, because I was always really curious. So I would observe and be like, oh, why is it that people act like that? Why is that this
Uh-huh.
girl is more popular? Why is it that this
Okay.
girl communicates so well? So
Yeah.
yeah,
So you were observant, but
yes,
not necessarily like uh
no,
looking at other kids' behavior and say, "Hey, you guys."
no, definitely not. Not like you can't
Okay.
do this, you can do
Yeah.
this. No, no, no.
Okay. When did it happen? When did the light switch happen? You think, you know what? I want to go to finishing school. When did that happen?
Yeah. Okay. Do you want the long story or the short story?
You know what? The internet is free, so I've got all the time. I don't have a time limit. So yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so there's actually three main reasons to how I got into this. Well, first, as I said, I've always been interested in cultures, and growing up between the UK and Hong Kong, I've been exposed to many cultures from a young age, and it's always been my interest to just hang with people from all sorts of different places and try to understand why is it that we behave differently. I remember in uni days, I'll have friends from like Italy, Russia, Romania, and we'll just all bring our own food and just talk about like culture or talk about meaning of life. It sounds very cliche, but then
Yeah.
essentially it's about understanding the fundamental bits of what makes us different yet similar.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
something that was really interesting for me. So culture is one thing, and etiquette has a lot of that. Especially in my work where I talk about dining etiquette, business etiquette, or like effective communication. It's always contextual, depending on the culture that you're in and things like this. So that's the first reason. Second reason is I grew up being very close to the beauty industry because my mom is in the beauty industry. And so then there was a lot of emphasis throughout my life on external beauty, how one should look, how you should always, look refined, look put together. And, her work was about beautifying her clients. And especially in East Asia, it's very interesting to find that because if you're in Europe or in the US, it's very different. The advertisements that you see in the MTR is very different. In East Asia, it's like, you need to be more skinny. You need to be more pale. You need to look more beautiful, right? So then being in that environment, I was like, it's not great. I mean, it's great in the sense that people are getting more beautiful. It's not great in the sense that people are putting less emphasis on internal beauty. Yeah. Your innate beauty and your traits, your grace, your elegance. And I thought having that really helps you project your confidence from within. So promoting inner beauty is the second reason to how I got into this. Sorry, I'm going in a very structured way for you to understand the whole picture.
I'm getting it. I'm outlining it as we speak. Yes.
Yeah. And the third one is actually from a very life-changing experience I had when I first got back to Hong Kong. That's actually the reason why I decided to stay in Hong Kong. So I graduated from Masters 2020, and 3 months after going back to Hong Kong initially to visit my mom, I found out I had a tumor that was going to kill me. It was like 23 cm behind my stomach.
Oh, wow.
Long story short, surviving from that really taught me so much about the beauty of life and putting things into perspective, what really matters. And I think that aligned my mission on just wanting to have my work on the path of helping people. And I think bringing all that together of what I know and what drives my passion, this is what I decided to do. And I think it is helping people.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Yeah.
I did a little snooping on your website. And so now I'm going to say this wrong, but in Switzerland, you want to say the Institut Villa Pereful?
Pierre? Yeah, I'm not the best at pronouncing French as well, but I think it's Institut Villa Pierre.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they have a quote on their website, which I really liked. And it says this. It says, "Good manners and politeness are always about being natural. We try to teach that etiquette is more than elegant gestures and a variety of cutlery. It is also about how people feel in your company. In this ever-changing world, it is also essential to remain flexible and at the same time well-organized."
Yes.
I like that, because when I thought, when I heard etiquette, I'm thinking, which fork do I use? Where do I put my napkin? But this modernizes it for me, a little bit, where it's about making people comfortable, making yourself feel natural in different environments. Do you want to expand on that? What is etiquette and manners to you?
Yes, absolutely. So this touches me a lot as well, because I definitely agree with that. I think a lot of people think that etiquette is about having very strict rules and norms and standards to how one should behave, especially when etiquette is very much traditionally associated with class. Yeah, and so people are like, oh, that must be something of the past, or that's just an upper class thing. But really, etiquette in the modern context is making people feel comfortable around you, depending on where you are, who you're with, and what you're doing. So I would say etiquette, it's really a way of life. And that's what I learned at IBP as well.
Yeah.
It's not a discipline, but it's the way you decide to live your life.
Yeah. Yeah. Because we could say it, right? It feels old-fashioned, right? It feels kind of like an old-fashioned industry to be in.
Yeah.
But when I said it makes it modern, I feel like good manners, I'm a high school teacher, right? So I work with kids, And I'm old, right? So I harp on saying thank you and saying please and saying may I
Mm-hmm.
instead of can I, like
Yeah,
those sorts
that's
of
a good one.
things. Yeah, and teenagers, they're like, "Buh," they don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
And, even just using grammar in an email to a teacher, I was like, you know what? This is your teacher. You should probably use proper grammar, use
Yeah.
punctuation and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
feel like it's still appropriate. It's not obsolete and it's not archaic. It's definitely something that I think we need more of. I think the society needs more of.
Yes, of course. I mean, exactly as you said, it acts as a lubricant for social interactions. It just helps to make people feel more comfortable in other people's spaces. I think a lot of people underestimate how holding a door open for someone, saying please and thank you and sorry, all these things can't be said enough.
Hmm.
And it just helps also to feel this respect and compassion in the society. So again, like following what you said as well, I think in today's society where we spend so much time on our phones and just like stuck to the screens, we've really
Hmm.
forgotten how to have some meaningful social interaction.
Hmm.
And I think learning about etiquette and how to communicate properly, it really just helps to reinforce that.
Yeah. So you took it one step further and you said, you know what, I'm not just going to do it for myself. I'm going to open, it's a company, yeah? Normae is a
Yes.
company.
Yes.
I'm going to start a company that does corporate training, personal training, and school training on
Yes.
these things. And
Yeah.
so it's normae.co. I'll write this out, NORMAE.co. And
Yeah.
you can see there are in-person classes in Hong Kong mostly. Sometimes you travel to Dubai to do classes?
Yes. So I do go to different parts of the world to do it. I've done it in Indonesia, in the UAE, in Hong Kong. I have clients from many different parts of the world. So
Mm.
it's always on request.
Okay. But if
Yeah.
you can't make it to one of Reina's in-person ones, there are online ones.
Yeah.
And some of them are just available to download, right? Some of them are just videos that people could watch.
Yes.
Now, you're in Hong Kong, so do you get more Asian customers or clients or more Western clients?
Um, Surprisingly, I have more Western clients. So I do have some Asian
Okay.
clients as well, depending also if you're asking for individuals or corporates. So I do one-to-one training and I also do company trainings.
Yeah, and you're the perfect person because you're right in between the worlds, right? You grew up speaking Cantonese and Chinese,
Yeah.
but then you also did half your life in England. So you can help. So if a business person, let's say, comes from Ohio
Yeah.
to Hong Kong to do business, you can help them kind of understand Chinese culture. And likewise, if you have someone who grew up in Hong Kong, but they're doing international things, you can help them kind of blend in the Middle East if they need to. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So I do feel like a middle person, almost like a bridge between cultures. And that's
Yeah.
what I strive to do.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
So, hey, can we get some freebies on the podcast today? I was thinking, I was thinking maybe I can ask you some questions, and I was going to start with some of your reels, and maybe we could watch it together. And I'll put the audio. I'll put
Sure.
the audio on the actual podcast so people can hear it as well. So, how about this one? It's pinned right at the top. It's how to signify that you are done in a Chinese meal. So let me do the sound too, so we can do this. All right, so this is like a kind of a little bit of a formal setting, I guess. Yeah.
Yes,
Are you okay looking at yourself? Do you get cringy when you see yourself?
I used to, but I think I got used to it now.
You edit all the time. Okay, let's watch this together.
Thank you so much for the food. It was delicious. If you're done with a Chinese meal, it's best to put your chopsticks on the right-hand side of the bowl instead of being on top, because otherwise it would signify that you're still hungry or would like to have more.
All right, so when you finish a Chinese meal, like the first picture here for the audience who can't see, the
Yeah.
chopsticks are right on top of your bowl, on top of the plate. That's a no-no, huh?
Yes. So, of course, a lot of the things that I teach on Instagram for dining is more to do with formal dining. So, in a casual setting, of course, you will,
Mm.
do as you like or what makes people feel comfortable. But then in a formal dining setting, if you were to put your chopstick on top of the bowl, it's kind of like you're still in the middle of eating and you
Ah,
are looking for more. Whereas, like, if
okay.
you put it down, like, I guess if you were to put the spoon um, back on the other plate after you're done with the soup, then it indicates to the other person that you're done.
Okay. Okay, any other things that we need to know when we go to a formal Chinese dinner? I think you had something about taking only a little bit at a time.
Yes.
With the Peking duck, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big one. And I actually, I made a mistake many times as well, coming back to Hong Kong because spending so much time in the UK, and I'm sure in the US it's the same. You usually take the food for yourself
Uh-huh.
and then you start eating. But then in the Chinese setting, because it's much more communal, based on collectivistic values. So then when you're having food together, you're only supposed to take one bite each time. And once you're done, you take another bite.
Okay, oops.
Yes.
I mean, the thing is, you don't know when it's coming back around, you want to make sure, but okay.
Exactly.
Point
Yeah.
taken. And
Yeah.
then I think most Asians know not to stick your chopsticks straight into your rice.
Yes.
And that comes from like spiritual rites and stuff, yeah?
Yes, exactly. I actually have seen that done in different parts of the world. And whenever I see that, I'm like, oh my Lord, I cringe, I don't know if you have the same effect.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just wrong.
Because it looks like incense. It looks like you're doing the...
Exactly. So that's a big one.
Okay, let's see. Am I missing anything? Anything else about a Chinese formal dinner that we might be missing?
I would say a very important one is you always try to serve others before you serve yourself. So whether that be tea or a bite of food. But then in today's world, people might not like that you're trying to impose too much. So then a good one could be just kind of pointing at the plate with your whole hand, not just with one finger, because that's rude, and then kind of suggesting like, would you like some before you take for yourself?
Yeah. Or maybe asking, may I serve you, before you start putting it on their plate. Yeah.
Exactly.
Now, is there ever, I know in Korean culture, there's kind of an age thing where whoever's the oldest kind of sets the rules. In Chinese culture, is that true too, where the elders kind of have to eat first? And
yes. So I would say in a traditional Chinese setting, even when I go back and have food with my, with my big family, where my grandpa is present, we'll always wait for him to 起筷, which means like to pick up his chopstick. But then I do know that for the younger generations, they're not as aware of it. So sometimes they do start eating and I'm like, no, don't do that,
Yeah, they need to know. Sometimes you got to remind even older folks in their 30s or 40s, you got to remind them. All right, let's move on to communication. And there's a lot of these. I had one where, this is called the white flag approach.
Yeah, that's my favorite one.
I think it's a good one. Okay, let me, you want to set the scenario and then I'll play the video.
Sure. So, in a situation where where one could usually find themselves is you're stuck in a conversation for way too long that you want to get out of. How do you politely exit the conversation without making the other person feel like you're bored of them, you've had enough, or just blatantly rude?
Okay. So you're trying to get away from this person.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's listen to your video here, and then you can explain it more afterwards.
Sorry, I really need to go. Speak to you next time? I need to go in about 15 minutes, but just before I go, tell me more about that trip. This is called the white flag approach, and you can use this next time you want to exit a conversation politely.
All right.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you're giving them some attention. You're not cutting out right away rudely. It's kind of like you're not hanging up the phone on them, right? You're exiting, but you're giving them a little time, a little bit of your time left.
Exactly. So I think leaving abruptly sometimes can leave the other person feeling like, oh, okay, you have to go. And also, this is kind of like a shorter way of saying, what you're saying is really interesting and I'd like to hear more, but then I need to go soon. So just tell me a little bit more before I go. It's kind of in the same line of that. And I would say that, it's very useful. It leaves the other person feeling great. And then you can continue the conversation next time.
Yeah, they won't remember you as just walking away from them.
Exactly.
They'll remember the conversation. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about eye contact. So this title of this one is called Secrets of Eye Contact, East versus West.
Yeah.
Let's play it and then you can explain it.
Sure.
Do you know that eye contact varies across cultures? For example, the intensity and duration are higher in Western cultures than it is in Eastern cultures.
So if you're in a situation and you're speaking to someone from Europe, you're more likely to have that intense eye stare versus someone from Asia. You're more likely to look away or look down or...
Yes, exactly. I would say, especially in more traditional parts of the society, sometimes in China and sometimes even in Southeast Asia, the hierarchical concept or structure in the society is very prominent, if you like. So, especially between junior and senior, or between someone older and younger, the younger person isn't expected to be looking at the older or senior person so intensely. I've actually experienced that in my trainings, where when I have East Asian clients and I'm going about the class and suddenly I look back at them as they have been looking at me, and then they will kind of avoid the eye contact a little bit, or they will soften their gaze. I
Yeah.
know that they're just doing this to be polite. But of course, again, for the younger generation, it might be different. But traditionally, this is quite the case.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I agree. What do you think? So I'm a big fan of, if there's only two of you, I'm a big fan of going to a counter or a bar to talk because
Yeah.
you're not staring at each other. Is that a good move or a bad move? Is it too casual?
Do you mean if you're going on a date with someone for the first time?
No, even just a friend.
Yeah.
Or with my wife or someone, Like I like the counter. I kind of feel like it's a chance to be close. We don't have to shout at each other across the table. But is this, I guess if you had a client or someone, you would never do this. It has to be someone you're pretty comfortable with.
I would say so, yes, because I would say sitting by the bar would indicate a more casual mood,
Ah,
if you like. Yeah.
okay.
But it is useful. I can see how.
Yeah, because you're not staring right at each other. You have
Yeah,
you can kind of look away. All right, so
exactly.
I won't do that on my next negotiation or anything. I'll
Definitely not.
save it for my wife or my friends. All right, so let's get into first impressions.
Yeah,
Let's talk about first dates. How about that? So
sure.
I think you have a reel on this one. Do you know where it is? Is it an older one?
On first date, I think,
I thought it was 3 ideas for first date. Was that something I saw?
yes, 3 things you should do on your first. Yes.
All right, let's do it. And then
Okay.
you could add more. You could add 5 things. We could add more to this.
Sure.
3 things you should do on your first date. Put your phone away, including the table, yes. And if you really have to use it, please excuse yourself. Work on your table manners and avoid messy foods such as chicken wings or burgers. Be polite, including the ones that you will meet on the date, such as the servers. It says a lot about you.
All right, 3 things. Yeah, the phone.
Yeah, that's a big
Phone.
one. And it's way too normalized these days, where people would just
Yeah,
check their phone literally in the middle of talking to you. And you're just like,
yeah.
that's rude. I know you're not trying to be, but
I
yeah, it's a little
know.
bit overly normalized these days.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So put it away and then maybe even put it on silent, right? Because if it buzzes in your pocket, you might be tempted. Might be
exactly. And if
tempted
you
to
have
look
your
in.
screen, exactly, if you have your screen facing up as well,
Yeah.
every time something pops up, you'd be like, you'd be hard to resist looking at it.
All right. And then you said no messy foods. So those are some of the cheaper options, but is it weird to go on a first date at an expensive restaurant? Is that too much too soon, or what do you think? This is opinion. This is not necessarily etiquette here.
Yeah, I would say when it comes to these kind of things, there's really not a right or wrong, like strict answer. But then depends again who you're asking to go on a date with. Um,
Yeah.
I think with etiquette, you also learn how to speak, act, and dress with impact. So let's say you're
Mm,
really trying to impress a very classy girl or very classy gentleman, then maybe
yeah.
you'll consider taking her to a more, high-end restaurant. But then I would say mid-end could always be
Yeah.
safe. Yeah.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
if you go to a three-star Michelin restaurant, it's $500. That might be a little too much on the first
Yeah.
date. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The person might feel a little bit pressured. But
Right.
yeah, make sure you tell them what the dress code is as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And should you talk about who's going to pay ahead of time or wait till the bill comes?
Ooh, That's a tricky one.
It's different in Asia too. I've heard it's different in Asia.
Yes. So again, with the younger generation these days, I think a lot of them will go half. But then I personally would think that the first date should be paid by the person who's asking or proposing to go on a date.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
That's a safe one. Yeah.
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 Yeah. I mean, I haven't dated in 25 years, so I'm a little out of the game, but I think that sounds reasonable, right? It sounds reasonable. And or if you do choose something that's a little pricier and you want to say, if we go here, is it okay if we split it? I think that's okay. It's maybe not the most attractive thing to do.
Yeah, it might not be the first thing you want to say before you go on a date, because it might come across as almost, a little bit calculative. You're like, oh, I'm already thinking about the bill and we haven't even started talking yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But we did a dating show on here with different people, and the people who are from Asia, so Hong Kong and Korea, they said for sure the guy pays. They said there's no like that's totally a red flag if the guy doesn't offer it, at least offer. Like they were okay with paying, like offering to pay half, but they said the guy should at least offer. That's one of the tests that they had.
That's definitely the traits of a gentleman, I would say. But then when you touch on these kind of subjects these days, it can get quite sensitive because people are like, oh, but that is such an idea of the past. So I would say it really depends on who you're dating, whether or not this person is more traditional, what kind of, let's say, baseline or standard you want to set for the relationship. But I definitely do know quite a few women who's like, if the guy makes me pay on the first date, he is out and I will never see him again.
Yeah, that's for I know some people like that too.
Yeah,
all right.
exactly.
So guys, you got to be ready. You got to be ready to pay if you have to. All right. Well, let's shift over back to food. Now, you travel all over the world and you do consultations all over the world.
Yeah.
Is it ever okay to slurp or smack your food or burp at the table? What do you think?
I would say slurping in a Japanese ramen shop based in Japan, not a ramen shop in the US.
That's expected, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because I'm sure you know that it means to the chef that you're really enjoying the meal. But anywhere else, I just don't think, I don't think it's respectful to the people around you. Because think about if someone was slurping next to you, you'll be a little bit,
yeah,
not the best environment to be in. Yeah.
Now, there are some cultures where smacking your food with your mouth open is pretty normal.
Do you mean eating with your mouth open?
Yeah.
In some cultures, it is more accepted. But I would still say, always play safe.
You gotta read the room.
Exactly. The most respectful way would be to close your mouth. So I do go back to a village in China sometimes to celebrate Chinese New Year with my Chinese side of the family. And some of them do slurp and eat with their mouth open. And these kind of things where maybe on a more quote unquote international stage, you'd be like, oh, that's very rude. But then it can be the norm in some places. I don't slurp with them. So I usually stick to what I think it's right while still making the others feel comfortable. Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's context, right? You're sitting on the floor, eating outside, or you're eating on a bench or something.
Yeah.
And everyone's doing it.
Yeah.
I think you're okay. But if you got a white tablecloth, if you're dressed up in a white tablecloth and you read the room, maybe that's not the time to eat with your mouth open.
Yes, exactly. I agree with that.
All right. So speaking of traveling,
yeah,
you had a reel that talked about, well, what cultural norm do you do when you travel to another country? Should you look at that country's norms? Should you use more of an international standard? Or should you just use your hometown norm? What do you think when you go to another country?
I really like one of the answers that one of my followers have put on. I think he or she quite accurately puts it, which is you should always try to follow the norm of the culture that you're in. But when in doubt, follow an international standard that you already know is, globally respectable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, sorry. There's a sentence that I really like. I think I've watched it on a TED Talk once, which says, it is not what you see, but how you perceive. So, and that captures a lot of the meaning of etiquette, which is depending on the lens that you're looking at a behavior, it can be rude in some places and not in others. So let's say you're in Norway or like some parts of Northern Europe, people's sense of personal space is really far apart. So let's say someone is like queuing up for the bus station. You can see people miles away from each other. But then if you go to Italy, if you go to India, if you go to parts of China, people are like so close to each other. So does it mean one is rude and the other is not? Or does it mean one is weird and the other one is normal? No, it's different ways of looking at the same thing. Yeah.
So one of these stories, I was taking the train in China.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you have too. And you get to the platform, and then the train's pulling up, and everyone starts jockeying for position. And I was with this guy from Shanghai, and I was, I've never been to Asia before, so I was new. And I was letting all these ladies go ahead of me, and he looked back at me, he's like, "What are you doing? You have to fight for a position. You're never going to get a seat this way." And he's like, "You got to kind of push him out of the way." And I was like, "I don't want to push him out of the way." So he was so mad at me for not doing that. He would get a seat, and then he would offer me the seat once we got in there. But I didn't want to do it. But he's like, "No, you have." It's just an awkward situation. But sometimes maybe you gotta kind of just go with the norm, what the norm is over there.
That's really interesting that you say that, because I think if you are not used to pushing people out of the way, you will think that's too rude to do that. I would say your friend kind of did you a very good favor, because you kind of don't have to do that while still getting the benefit of doing that.
Yeah. You know what's funny though is that we were on the train from Shanghai over to Nanjing. It's not that long of a ride. It's maybe 2 hours or something like that. And so I would have a seat, and then there'd be a family with these kids, and I gave them my seat. Because they're little kids, right? And I didn't care. I was. This is when I was young, so I was standing there.
Yeah,
and
you're still young.
But then people were so shocked that I did that, and they would kind of offer me their seat. It was kind of like a side, like they'd scoot over a little bit because they knew I was a foreigner, and they were kind of like they were touched by it. It was an interesting dynamic that they wouldn't offer the kid they wouldn't offer the seat to the little kid. But when I offered the seat to the little kids and the stood up, they saw that and go, "Here, we'll scoot over so you can sit down too." It's kind of interesting.
That's really sweet.
I was kind of touched by that.
That's very touching.
Yeah, I kind of like that.
It's really interesting you say that, because looking at the topic of etiquette itself, especially on my Instagram videos, a lot of people, I mean, of course, there's a lot of people that comment nice things, but then a lot of people also question whether or not there is such thing as etiquette in Chinese culture. They'd be like, "Oh, why is a Chinese girl talking about etiquette? There is no such thing as etiquette in China. People eat with their mouth open, people slurp and all that sort of stuff." And just following what I said earlier, it's not what you see, but how you perceive. Even the term etiquette is interpreted differently in different parts of the world. So let's say dining etiquette. In China, it's not about, sitting straight up and holding your fork and knife properly, or like not eating with your mouth open, but rather in Chinese dining etiquette, the hostess never sits down. She's always making sure that you have enough food, you're fed well, you're happy and everything. And that in itself is great etiquette. It's just different way of showing that etiquette.
Yeah. Do you think it's evolving? Do you think it is changing at all? Like from even the few years that you've been doing it, have you seen it change in the last 5-10 years?
You mean the understanding of etiquette?
Yeah, or even just things that at one time were unacceptable are now slowly getting accepted or modernizing in certain ways. Like, let me try to think of an example. Like, I'm not sure. Like, okay, so for example, like, no, I don't know if this is a good one. Like, if you text someone with all lowercase, like, that's pretty acceptable nowadays, right?
Yes.
But I'm trying to think something like that. Have you seen something change in the last few years? Or like, even 20 years ago, it would have been weird for a girl to pay for dinner, right?
Yeah.
But now it's a lot more accepted, I think.
Yes, so that is one. I'm just thinking in the context of dining or communicating or well, I just thought of something quickly, which is the men pushing the chair in for the woman.
Okay.
But
They
maybe that
don't do that
traces
anymore?
back. Well, very rarely.
Yeah.
And it goes back quite far, I would say. So I'm not sure if people were still commonly doing it in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
But
Or even holding the door open. Is that a thing anymore? Holding the door?
not as much. And then there is
Or when you get out of the car, how about this? I'm the driver
yeah.
and you're in the passenger side. Well, in Hong Kong
Mhm.
has switched.
Yeah.
And I pull up and I run around and open the door for you. Is that archaic or is that still a thing?
I don't think that's a common thing anymore. I do know gentlemen who still do that. But definitely holding the door open for a lady is becoming increasingly less. Also, I think because some men are afraid that by doing that, it might, offend some ladies
Yeah.
because some ladies might be like, I can do that by myself. But I
Right.
would say, regardless of whether or not you're a gentleman or lady, if you have time, you should kindly, hold the door open for the person behind you. So it's not about
Yeah.
sex.
Yeah. This is fascinating. I feel like I could talk about this all the time. So everyone for a long time. So everyone out there, go check out Reina's reels. There's lots of good stuff on there. Just stuff you might not have even noticed or thought about. So take a look. All right, you survived our difficult questions. Are you ready for our lightning round? But this
Yeah.
is what I call it a yow. This is called Your Asian Opinion. So, Raina, are you ready? What do you think is the biggest faux pas that most of us are doing or that you see more often than any other faux pas out there?
It can be any.
Yeah.
Mm. Trying to think of something that's more significant. Because there's a lot of small ones that I can think about, but then it doesn't really change one's
Mm,
life.
yeah.
I would say checking the phone regularly
Yeah.
whilst you're having a social
Yeah.
interaction with others is one of the biggest faux pas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Guys and girls.
Yes.
Yeah, I think for everybody.
Exactly.
I agree. I agree. And I'm guilty of it, but I agree. All right. What do you think? What's your opinion on the best and worst place to go for a first meeting? Now, this could be a date, but it also could be a colleague you haven't hung out with before.
Yeah.
Best place and worst place for the first time you're hanging out socially.
I would say best place is a spot where you can pick between having enough background noise so that kind of loosen up for you guys to have a
Yeah.
conversation. As you said, maybe sitting by the bar, if it's a more social setting, can allow you to, avoid awkward moments. But yeah, it should be something between having background noise, but also enough space for you to talk and connect.
Okay. Yeah, I think we talked about this before, and someone said somewhere that starts casual but leaves the door open for something like maybe coffee at 4 o'clock. And
Yeah.
if it goes well, you can say, "Hey, you want to grab a bite too, or grab a movie, or grab something."
Oh, that's a good one.
It leaves the door open,
Yeah.
right? If it's not going well, you just, have one cup of coffee and then go your separate ways. But
Yes, exactly. I do know some people that are like never go for a drink or dinner because you never know if it's going to go well. So you might as well go for a coffee because there's a time limit to it.
you can escape.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, how about the worst place to go on a first date?
Yeah, I would just say that anywhere that's too noisy where you have to shout at each other, or anywhere with a very bad service
Uh-huh.
that can maybe ruin the mood of the
Right.
setting, ruin the mood of
Yeah.
the occasion.
Like a really crowded bar or something, where you have to fight for a
Exactly.
drink or something. Yeah.
Exactly. So I would say, regardless of what place you pick, you should always think in advance and preferably somewhere you have already been to. So you know how the people are like, how the setting is like, what kind of people you should go to these kind of places to just make sure it's going to go well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've also heard don't do anything too extreme, like, hey, let's go rock climbing or let's
Yeah.
go, on a 12-mile hike, on the first date. That's
Yeah,
a little
exactly.
too much.
Also, because you can't escape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mile 6, you have nowhere to
Yeah.
go. You have to finish this.
Yeah.
All right. Last one is, are there any celebrities or notable people that you think have just grace and etiquette, well-mannered? Like, who do you look at and say that person is really a good example?
So, I would say that it's my mentor. So my mentor is also she's a notable figure in Hong Kong. Her name is
Yeah.
Reina Chan. And she has really inspired me a lot on pursuing this path and staying strong on this path of teaching etiquette.
Mm.
Yeah, she's
Mm-hmm.
always been a very elegant and graceful woman all her life.
Yeah.
No bad news, and that's very rare for any celebrities in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And she just got a very kind and compassionate heart, and she always wants to spread good values. I think that is very inspiring.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
great. This is not a political podcast, but I'm going to throw out Obama. I thought he
yeah,
was always so good at any situation. Like he could joke around, he could cut loose, but he's also good with formal settings.
yeah,
Like I don't remember any really big faux pas that he ever did in 8 years. That's saying something when you're under the microscope and people are looking for flaws.
yeah.
Now, I won't make any comments on the current president. I don't want to get canceled, but yeah, I feel like those days are a little gone. Yeah, so
Yeah, I'm actually really happy you invited me on this podcast, and I am really glad to see your work and how your work can be impacting the society positively.
thank you.
Because I see that, yeah, you're spreading a lot of good Asian values, and there's a lot of peace and compassion put into that. And I think we all need a little bit more of that in the world right now, you know?
We do. We
Yeah,
do. Yeah. Speaking of that, we have one final question, and you can take your
yeah.
time thinking about it. This is, who's your infatuation? An infatuated is any Asian person that inspires you. They could be living or to see someone you know or someone you admire from afar. So, Reina Chan, who is your infatuation?
My mom.
Okay. Yeah.
My mom has always been my role model growing up. She is, there's a saying in Chinese. You don't speak Chinese, do you?
A little bit. 食聽五十講.
Okay. 入得廚房，出得廳堂. Have you heard of that before?
No, I don't know that one.
So she's good in the kitchen, but she can also be in the living room. Yeah, she's always been the best hostess growing up. We entertain quite a lot. We invite guests to our house, and then she cooks the best food. She always makes sure that everyone is entertained. But the weird thing is she never speaks much on the table. Like, people will be having the best conversations, and she's just worried about, have you got enough tea? Have you got enough food? Have you got enough drinks? So she's always been their best hostess. She's always had great values growing up. She always told me that you don't need to be super successful or be the smartest person, but then I want you to be a kind person. And kindness has always been the most important value she wanted to instill in me. She's also a very successful businesswoman, so everything makes me, she's just my role model, and I love her.
Okay. I was gonna ask, is that where you got your first taste of manners and etiquette, was from mom?
Yeah, I would say
Yeah.
so. I think she has a good mix of Eastern and Western etiquette.
Yeah, I have a very, I was watching your croissant video of how it's best to take a little piece at a time. I got that exact lesson from my grandmother about
Really?
bread at a restaurant, and she would say,
Yeah.
"No, don't." I'd shove the whole thing in my mouth, crumbs everywhere. She's like, "No, no, no, that's not what a gentleman does. A gentleman breaks off a piece and
Exactly.
eats it." Yeah, so those lessons, right? They start from your parents, and then you observe other people, of course, but it starts at home, of course, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's a
Yeah.
lot to do with how you grew up, how you were raised, the kind of influence you had. But even if you didn't, there's so much resources out there these days that we can learn from. And simply observing, in a restaurant, what kind of people inspire you, to be more like. You can learn a
Yeah.
lot from that too.
Yeah, no, I love
Yeah.
it. All right, so everyone out there, if you want to learn more about this, go sign up for one of Reina's classes. I think you should, either online or in Hong Kong if you're listening in Hong Kong. Anything new for you? Anything new for Normae coming up?
There is something. I am actually thinking of starting a podcast.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
All about etiquette,
Uh-huh.
communication, and culture.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you're filling a void. Like, you don't see a lot of people doing this, especially people that can bridge both Chinese and Western culture as well as you can. So I'll definitely tune in. Let me know if you need any guests to come on and ask you questions. I'll come on and I'll be one of
For
your first
sure.
guests.
For
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Is it going to be called the Normae podcast, or what are you thinking?
It's called Humans with Reina.
Okay.
Yes.
Love it.
And I think the reason why I wanted to start it is just I can think of a lot of incredible people I love to talk to more about what they think makes us different yet similar. Because fundamentally, us humans are all bridged by etiquette, communication, and culture. And in today's world, where we're feeling increasingly alienated and separated from each other, how can we have more empathy and understanding to promote more peace and compassion in the society? That's the original inspiration for why I want to start the podcast.
Great. You got a launch date in mind?
Yes, it should be May.
Okay.
Yeah.
Coming soon.
Yeah, but exactly the date, just stay in tune.
Okay, yeah, and actually this podcast is this episode is gonna come out in June, so it might already be live by the time you're listening to this. So get Humans with Reina, is that what you said?
Yes.
All right. So if you want to check out Reina's Instagram, it's at Reina Sui Chan. I'll spell that out in the show notes, and of course you can go to the website, normae.co. And if you're in Hong Kong, go swing by and take a lesson for sure. As I always mention, you can write to us at infatuasianpodcast@gmail.com and follow us on Instagram or Facebook at Infatuasian Podcast. You can find all these details in the show notes. Reina, thank you so much for spending some time with us. This was really, really fun.
Thank you so much. It was all my pleasure.
Oh, I enjoyed it. Yeah, so I'm going to have to listen back to this to make sure I'm doing everything right on this one. But everyone out there, thank you so much for listening. We appreciate you hanging out with us. Come back and listen to us again sometime. But on behalf of Reina and myself, we hope that you're all happy, healthy, and safe out there. We'll talk to you again soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye.